Thanks very much, Mary. So I'm fortunate. I've worked in wader conservation for 30 years. I don't have any interest in shooting. I'm a bird by training, but through working on various projects over different landscapes, different sites, different years, I've had an insight that, as I said, I've been very fortunate to gain. I've co-opted a number of other people to run this session with me, and they're the ones that are doing the hard work. But I'm just going to sort of set the scene and get us thinking a bit, I hope. And then through Paul at BTO particularly, and through Tim, we'll explore some of the options that are open to us to manage this difficult situation. So I thought I'd start by, you rarely see photos of birds predating mammals. It's normally the other way around. You know, predation is a natural process. We shouldn't lose sight of that. We, in our projects and our daily lives, we encounter it as a problem, but it's a natural process. So we should ask the question, why is it a problem for us? And of course it's a problem because of man's action in the countryside, in landscapes. If we had semi-pristine landscapes, we wouldn't have the same predation issue. It's because of man's influence in countries like Britain and across Europe. We've changed those landscapes so much that actually we've made it relatively easy for certain predatory species and a lot harder for certain prey ones. And you know, I'm sorry, I'm the first to put this in. You all know the score, but the point is, this is, you know, the BBS data from BTO. It just shows that the time that curlews have been declining for a whole variety of reasons, not just predation, we've seen quite an increase in generalist predators, and that is now causing pressure at the point that it's stopping us recovering some of these birds. So we're in this strange situation where we've got lots of these guys in the middle. They're being fed by a variety of things. Game birds has already been mentioned, and it's of concern to a lot of us. I live in a part of Hampshire where 15 years ago I saw very few deer. We now get a lot of roe and muntjac roadkill. So there are other things going on as well. I've mentioned the simplified landscapes, but also, you know, we're lacking those top apex predators, which in a more balanced system would control these mesopredators. Another classic paper, I'm sure many of you are familiar with Maya Rubergen's work, a meta-analysis getting on for 15 years ago now, but just showing from about 1980 an increase in nest predation rates and a consequent decline in chick survival rate at the same time. And as we've heard this morning, and we'll come on to, we're making progress with addressing that nest survival, but there's still an awful lot of unknowns around chick survival. Key predators, we think, for nests, probably mammals, mainly red fox. But what you'll understand as we go through the session and hear the discussions is that the complication is that we very much get site-by-site effects. So what works in one site doesn't necessarily translate very well. But increasingly we're seeing more avian predation on wader chicks. If we had plenty of time in the longer term, what we'd like to do, of course, is create better, more balanced landscapes. And that's what we ought to be striving to do. But that is a long-term goal. We need to work on that, and we need not to lose sight of that while we're implementing more immediate measures. And we need to be thinking outside the box about some of these larger apex predators, or just thinking about using technology and techniques rather than just fencing or just shooting things. You know, what else can we do? So I've put up a range of things, and it was mentioned earlier today, habitat is the core of it. If you're not creating optimal habitat, then, you know, why the hell should you be putting a fence down or shooting an animal? That's not justified unless the habitat's in place. We'll come on and talk about exclusion fencing, but I just thought, and this is where I mean sort of novel techniques. You know, it might be taste aversion, that's been tried in other countries. Acoustic deterrents, no one's experimented with those. Can we, guard animals I've mentioned, and again, there are other global examples. So I think sometimes we're a bit insular. New Zealand's had huge predator problems and started to get to grips with them, so we ought to be having meetings like this, but exploring a bit further afield as well. And then head starting, I'm sure we'll discuss in more detail. I don't see head starting as a method of managing predation pressure. It's avoiding predation in the way that lethal control might, but it's just deferring the problem unless we've addressed what's going on in the environment that you're taking those animals from in the first place. So it's avoiding predation rather than addressing it. It's complicated, as we keep on hearing. I've organised a long-term study in the Avon Valley in southern Hampshire. One of my biggest regrets was that at the outset I didn't start monitoring alternative prey for some of these predators. We did the classic, we went in, we wanted to monitor nests, monitor chicks. We started doing some predator monitoring. The more I go on, and we're just starting to do this, the more we're starting to understand that those temporal variations that Jen talked about yesterday. So badger predation we only see relatively infrequently in very cold, dry springs. But increasingly I'm of the opinion that actually we get higher generalist predation from both kestrels on chicks, from foxes on eggs, in very poor vole years. So when there's plentiful alternative food, and again I think that's an issue we don't understand. And then certain projects we know we're just not putting in enough effort, or there's catastrophic weather events, or we run into problems of, we're controlling one predator but then another becomes more important, and that's even harder because it's protected. This is quite an old study, Alison Holt and colleagues at Sheffield University a few years ago, and this is across both waders, seabirds and game birds, but it's quite an elite study, a meta-analysis of 40 studies where there was experimental lethal predator control, and it just gives you an idea that what I take away from that is that the outcome at the outset of a project isn't necessarily clear-cut. So in some cases, if you've got an effect size of 1, that's 100% increase. That's pretty good going, and you can see that for some of those seabirds where you're removing rats from isolated islands, if you can do it effectively, you have a big result. But conversely, it doesn't always pan out that easily. So what I'm trying to get us to do is just think with open eyes about the full implications. It's not just about the project PR, the management, the funding. It's about, as we've heard, research and monitoring to properly decide on targets at the outset and then monitor whether you're achieving them. And particularly for lethal control, these sort of considerations are important. Can we actually justify what we're doing? Is it cost effective? Is it focused? Is it the right time of year? And for some of these methods, is it humane? So I'm going to leave it there. I hope that set the scene, and others will get into more detail of some of these techniques. So I'm going to give Paul an hour to get going, and then we will have a short break. And then, unfortunately, Ellie can't make it today. She's one of my PhD students, so I'll run you through her study, which gives us a fascinating insight into what can be achieved in a national park. Nathan's here, and he'll talk about some of the complication around lethal fox control and what sort of effort needs to be put into it. And then Tim will take us on to some of the practicalities of doing that on the ground. Thank you. All yours, Paul.
Thanks, Andy. I don't feel too co-opted, by the way. I'm very grateful for you giving us this time. So for those of you who weren't here yesterday, my name's Paul Noyes. I work for the British Trust for Ornithology on wader research and monitoring. We were interested in this work because there was a bit of, I've been nest fencing for about 2 years now. I'm relatively new to the intervention. I came to it through a piece of work coordinated by the Curlew Recovery Partnership that's funded through the Natural England Species Recovery Programme that has been mentioned, I think, a couple of times or a few times throughout this workshop. It's obviously, we all know it's quite common practice now. I came to it in the Yorkshire Dales on my site. My dad's an electrician and general handyman, and I think he found it quite funny, the idea of me suddenly electric fencing curlew nests. I'm not the most practical person in the world, so it was a steep learning curve for me. So this research has showed, this is just a very simple plot of what we're finding from this work over 2 years now of fencing nests on a number of sites around England. And we're finding a big effect on nest survival, as we've seen with Petra and Daniela's talk as well. We know that there's a big effect. I think we've got that bit of information, the empirical difference on nest survival, but we were also really keen, I mean, for me, just from a personal perspective, I just found it so hard, the nest fencing. Like others have said, it's hard work. It takes a lot of effort. And I was really interested to just kind of use this opportunity with this event to kind of pull everyone's experiences together. And this is going to complement the work that we've done with the Curlew solutions trials, combining the empirical evidence with practitioner perspectives as well. So we did this with 2 ways, with the pre-workshop questionnaire, and this focused a lot on the fence types people were using. We want to really delve into the detail around that, so it was a very detailed questionnaire. Thank you to those who did engage with that. Some of the associated costs with that as well, so the questionnaire focused on those. It did cover perceived or known benefits and issues, challenges, tips and innovations as well, but that's what we're going to focus a lot more on in the workshop today. So that is a chance for what you've already given a bit of information, those of you who did answer the questionnaire. If you've given a bit of information around that, now's the chance to go elaborate on that and really give us a lot more detail. So it's really, really important, if you did answer the questionnaire, to engage with the workshop discussion today. We're going to have 2 outputs, 2 key outputs. So we are going to have a research report from both the questionnaire and the workshop discussion today. But this is also going to feed into wider guidance. So working with the Curlew Recovery Partnership on updating the guidance in general around that, but the nest fencing this project is going to feed into that as well. So as Andy said, we've got 1 hour. It is just going to be a single group discussion, so please do speak up, do get involved. We've got red, yellow and green cards, which is Harry. Have you already? Amazing. I didn't even notice you were so... So I don't know what's happened to the colours here. I promised they were when I sent these over, but you know the colours. So we're going to pose some statements throughout the discussion that you can say disagree, neutral, like neither disagree or agree is the green, neutral, yellow, and disagree, red. And microphones are live. I hope Verity is going to help maybe with roving around with recording this. So what you say is going to be the output of this workshop discussion. We're not getting you to write anything down through any flip chart paper or anything like that. So please speak up as well so it can be heard, and do get involved in the discussion. Equally, feel free to interrupt at any time. It's very... Yeah, feel free to interrupt at any time. We're going to run through some of the questionnaire answers and also have some of the votes as well. So I'll give it a bit of time. People are really excited about the... I wasn't expecting the cards to generate that much excitement. Okay.
I'll record like how many.
Yeah, so happy to. Yeah,
I'll try.
Okay. So I'm going to start with the questionnaire results. So we're summarising briefly just how many people engaged, what the nature of the people who did engage. So we got 26 respondents from the questionnaire. So firstly, just a massive thank you to everyone who spent the time. Like I say, it was a long questionnaire. So if you spent the time going through that, we're very, very grateful. We were really particularly happy to get the European respondents as well. We were really interested to see as Andy was talking about in terms of predator control, it's just as important around nest fencing as well to get that kind of wider experience across Europe. So we had no projects from Scotland actually. It was interesting with Graham, with no one raising their hands with the Scottish. Was there anyone who was from?
There was Jenny and there was Flo and there was one other.
Okay, but no nest fencing projects in Scotland, so it's interesting. I think that could belie some of the differences in terms of the conversation or approaches to predation, potentially. So no projects from Scotland. The questionnaire is now closed, but if you're listening now and you do have nest fencing experience and you didn't contribute to the questionnaire, do get in touch with me. There's still time. Do that quickly though, because we will be getting stuck into the data quite soon after this, but it is still open if you want to contribute. So in terms of the respondents to the questionnaire, in terms of years operating, most projects had been operating for multiple years actually, so there's only one very new project of 1 year. The majority are 2 to 3 years, but it's quite interesting. We've got a really good number of projects that have been operating for 5 or more years. So that shows that there is a wealth of experience in this room. So hopefully these projects can speak a little bit during the discussion as well. In terms of total fences deployed per project, the median was about 28. That's over the lifetime of the project, 28 fences. And then for each year, the median was about 10 fences as well. There's quite a range, as you can see. There's a whopping 324 for one project. That's pretty amazing stuff. And then the top for an annual deployment was 45 deployments as well, which is again is a monumental effort. But like I say, this kind of median average is around 28 over the lifetime, 10 per year. Then moving on to the first topic. So we've got about 5 topics and then a final kind of discussion point as well. So the first of these we wanted to cover was just kind of whether you should fence or not, like when to fence or not. Whether we think it's worth it. So the questionnaire did cover this a little bit in terms of asking the respondents whether they felt it boosted hatching success, and quite unsurprisingly, based upon some of the empirical evidence we've been talking about, a whopping 96% of people felt that it did significantly increase hatching success. A little bit were unsure, but overwhelmingly there's a clear and obvious pattern here, and we think it's interesting but not a great need to discuss. I think what was a bit more interesting was whether fencing boosts fledging success. So again, we did have an overwhelmingly positive response to this. So 69% of people answered yes, either significantly or slightly increase in fledging success, which we did feel was quite interesting. So I don't know is there anyone, just really briefly, who could say if you did answer yes, if you say a little bit of the reasonings why you thought? It's always hard when the first person, isn't it? Ah, yes, Susanna, thank you.
If we have more chicks coming in,
Yeah,
it's as simple as that. You've got more chicks entering the system.
yeah. So you're just starting, you're going to have a set chick survival rate on your site, and if you're starting from a starting point of more chicks, it's increasing fledgling success. And you feel you've seen that in South Lakes?
We fear that, but
Yeah.
it's a very small data.
Yeah. And it's hard as well because you obviously Barney does predator control as well, and you say kind of extrapolate, teasing apart which intervention is having the effects. But that's the good thing about these questionnaires. You don't have to have the statistically significant. Like if your experience is on the ground, you feel it's having an effect on fledgling success. Then yeah. Was there someone else? I saw Clive.
For exactly the same reason as Susanna, more chicks coming out,
Yeah.
more chance you have to get the fledgling.
Yeah. That's good. That's what we suspected. But I wanted to ask you: is there anyone who answered yes for a different reason, or was it all pretty much the same reasons? Is that increasing that starting point? I'll move on to the next slide then. In that case, so in terms of maybe a bit of a longer discussion on fencing or not to fence. Are there any times anyone had, thinking back, where you did fence, where you feel like that maybe wasn't a good idea? I mean, it's quite hard to start off with these kind of things with a discussion, but is it always felt like a good choice? Jamie, thank you, man.
We had one where we came across enough by chance, and we decided in the moment to fence it because we had the equipment with us. But we didn't have a vantage point to actually observe the curlew return to the nest.
I see.
And it was all set up. We had a trail camera on there. For whatever reason, the trail camera failed to give us footage until about 3 days later, which was a crow coming to take the eggs away from the nest.
I see.
And we assume the curlew abandoned. You don't know whether it is that fence that caused it, but just be unable to observe the curlew going back onto the nest was left us in doubt basically as to whether that was a likely thing. So yeah, from then on we decided we not to fence any nests if we can't get a good enough vantage point to observe the curlew return.
That's really interesting. Yeah, we come on to watching back and abandonment in another topic as well, but that is interesting. So you'd always now fence where there's an opportunity to watch back, basically. Yeah. Taria?
So, my point is why we create fence in that place. If you don't consider there's an issue, potentially with ground predators,
Yeah.
better leave it there.
So do you have sites, just out of interest, are there sites you're familiar with where you feel predators aren't an issue? What, sorry?
That's difficult to answer.
Yeah. Because that's the thing, is if there's not any real world examples where you don't think it would have an effect, I guess you could argue it's always worth it. But interestingly, I don't know if I want to preempt anything from the CSD information, but yeah, we don't really have evidence in Dales from the Dale site. It's a limited sample size. There's not evidence it does boost nest survival on the sites that we had.
Yeah.
You did the analysis.
There is some suggestion in our data that fences are not necessarily needed in the Yorkshire Dales, obviously where predator management is conducted quite intensively.
The sites that we studied in Wednesday.
The sites within the Dales that Paul monitors specifically. There could be some scenarios under which fencing is not necessarily needed. However, we don't have a large enough sample size really to pull that pattern apart, that kind of spatial pattern apart. But there is some suggestion in our data that is what's going on up there. Whereas all the other sites, we had 4 other sites in our project. They're all in the lowlands, not really conducting intensive predator control, and fences had a huge effect in those areas, just because kind of the baseline from which you're working, the unhatched nests had such low survival.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that just to kind of back you that there's potentially real world examples where
Once you start to get to that moorland edge habitat, where your cattle grazing or sheep grazing is going to have minimal effect potentially on those nests, or get to just let nature go with this.
Yeah. I mean, because you were talking earlier on about the logistics of nest fencing, and actually you just raised your hand, but then if you had any more to say.
Yeah, just obviously we touched the Yorkshire Dales there, and a lot of nest fencing, electric fencing is sort of stock proofing, and we had one that I talked to you about that where the sheep came to the electric fence. Obviously they do the inquisitive come and look and rub, and they broke in and destroyed the nest. So talking to them, and the voltage was right and everything, but just sometimes the sheep are trained, the electric fence is and they go with the bum first rather than nose.
Elegant animals, aren't they?
Yeah, they're not embraced by it. So there's that element to it as well. Yes, yeah. The further towards the middle and fringe, it's less intensive. But the system that we have in the Dales is that you've got really intensive sheep in the line field, but because it's so short, all your weirs look to nest there, and the trampling's a big thing. And then the sheep, once the lambs get bigger, go to bigger pastures and up to the moor, so it's less an issue. They've got more ground and spread out, so it's there's still intensive farming going on, well, on a wide scale, but yes, it's those intense sort of farming fields that we do a lot more fencing on, and just public footpaths as well. We have people walking across fields, off footpaths, walking over nest sites, and so we put the fences up just to keep them away as well.
Visual marker, yeah. I think because that's interesting, because it kind of is linked to fence or not fence. these livestock fences, you're more keen on those areas where, like, you don't really have a fox or badger problem in some sites. You're doing basically just livestock fencing, which doesn't require, strimming and that maintenance, does it? So it's kind of like still fencing, but choosing to do a different type of fence, not the predator-proof, fencing as well, isn't it? So
Yes, it's always, they're quite laborious. Up to the 25 by 25 electric fences, the maintenance of them, putting them up. It's not a one-man job, so we're looking at how we can have less protection there, that one man can go and do it and put it up. And for livestock, not necessarily all predator fencing, but for livestock fencing that's secure, go a flat back and put it up. That doesn't have that maintenance. It's a strong enough structure that shepherd sheep can't rub on it and get to the nest. So
to kind of touching on a few points in terms of topography, I guess, from Jamie, in terms of watching back, being able to watch back. We've got the predator environment, whether it's actually you're stopping any medium-sized mammalian predators, and then a bit of logistics, in terms of manpower, getting the kit out to areas and things like that. Is there any? Sorry, did I summarise that right, or did you? I was trying to read your expression.
the time doing it,
the time.
Because you've got nests everywhere, and it's just trying to be everywhere at once. And if you haven't got a network of volunteers, and it's just you, then it's having those tools to go and do it on your own and get out as many nests as you can. But
definitely know that being, but you've been trapped.
Sorry, Jonathan Pinnock, I'm the Conservation Officer of the Locker. So we have, and it's the same on the Locker and Reserve, another scenario in which we choose not to fence is islands. I found a nest last year on an island on Upper Locker End. The island is accessible some of the time via low causeway, but it depends on walls allows. The island has had curlew on most years. It also has lapwing and oyster capture on it now as well, nesting in recent years. So we found that nest. We did consider fencing it, but because it's an island, we thought, well, it's a bit more protected from mammalian predators than if it was on the mainland. It wasn't grazed at the time, so there wasn't any risk of trampling by livestock.
Right.
We use heavy wooden fence posts, corner posts with, single strands of wire.
Mm-hmm.
It's quite a jolt putting them up. It takes quite a while. You need 4 or 5 people, 3 minimum really, to do it. And because it was quite a small island and it also had quite a lot of the waders nesting on it, we were worried about the disturbance impact as well. So we decided not to fence for those reasons. Now, unfortunately, the nest was predated, but it was by gulls, we think.
Okay.
Because there was lots of eggshell fragments when we came back to check on the nests.
You don't have
that predation event.
Because obviously foxes can swim quite well as well, can't they? So have you had any instances where you have had foxes or other predators?
I think on the reserve there have been, but I wouldn't be the best person to answer that. I didn't work on the reserve.
Yeah. So there's 2 things again. It's kind of like islands is the big one there, like that maybe not a useful intervention there. But then you touched really briefly on the breeding densities, because that kind of struck a chime for me, because I have that like on the Ian's patch, the breeding densities are insane, in terms of curlew. So we've fenced a few nests, and you're just setting off about 5 pairs around you, and other species of waders as well. So I think that is a thing to think about as well. When you're doing temporary individual nest fences, you can be causing quite a bit, and you're not just disturbing that one pair kind of thing. So that's another good point to raise. Clive or Jamie, I don't know who was.
You want to go first?
I was just going to call the disturbance actually. It reminded me of another one that we had last year. Which we decided not to fence. Basically, on the farm we had 2 nests in quite close proximity, and one of them was found by the farmer, and it was right next to where a digger was doing active work. And observations from the volunteers in the project saw that curlew was up really regularly, just being disturbed by the farm operation. And it was decided that we didn't want to add any additional disturbance pressure to those birds, because we didn't want it to be able to draw the break canals back. So we did protect the one that's far away from that, and we didn't protect the one that was right by the farming operations. As it happens, both of those nests, all of the chicks hatched. But the one that was fenced disappeared within days, and we basically predated. The ones that weren't fenced and subject to all the disturbance fetched both.
So we should just disturb curly nests, is that what? It's a secret. Okay, no, that's a new. I'm gonna stop listing because I've lost track of it now. But thinking about the amount of disturbance that pair might have had already, I think is a really good point. In thinking about nest fence.
Paul.
Oh, yeah, thanks. Yeah, that's a really good point. Clive, could you do it briefly, Clive?
It depends on the density of predators. We don't have the luxury of an adjacent grouse moor. We have cameras up all year round.
Yeah.
Got 20 cameras in 400 hectares. And we see foxes and badgers, cases, so virtually every night on one or more of the cameras throughout that.
Yeah.
So with that population, one not.
Yeah. Okay, no, that's really good. Getting the signal from Harry, so we've got a lot to get through. I suppose we could do it slightly more briefly, maybe, but which were the aspects? Sorry, we're just going through straight to, so we're changing topic now in terms of learning curves. So starting out, like I say, I found this really tricky myself, and I don't know in terms of other experiences, other projects. Is there anyone who could speak about some of the aspects of nest fencing they found most difficult when first starting out? Like, is there anything that springs to mind when you're just like, that was the worst? Do you want to?
Permissions on commons.
Permissions on commons. Okay, yeah.
And glaciers, kind of not knowing enough about them, so that was our job. But there was a lot of preconceived ideas, a lot of political, a lot of personal clashes. So it was really tricky.
Around fencing?
Putting fencing.
I see. I think, that probably is, we're going to come on to kind of public perception, others' perceptions of...
It's dealing with people to just let us just get on with it. And
So it is it's the perceptions around fencing, Might ask you to say a little bit more about that after, when we come to that. Was there anything else more logistically or more, specific aspects of...
Which current is needed as a minimum?
Okay, so the the actual technical details as well. That makes two of us again, but Susanna?
The corners, they always cause arguments, they collapse in and falls apart.
The corners, so the construction in general. Jamie?
Triple SI consents was an issue.
Yeah.
Good one of ours. It delayed us setting a fence up, and then by the time we actually got to it, being able to the door. But then once we got that sorted,
just
first time.
How laborious or lengthy was the application to, what did you need to get?
Essentially it involved us making sure we had a constructive relationship with our local Napoli legal advisor. Once we had that side person to talk to, have a conversation, we were aiming to then get a template of SI consent in place that we could then very quickly deploy when we needed to if a new nest was found.
Right.
And once that had actually been established, we were getting consent given within 24 hours of applying for it, which was fine. But it was, also the question is, when we were setting out, I didn't anticipate it was going to be, and logistically challenging to get SI consent, as it was in short.
I'm very lucky there's no triple SIs on our sites. That sounds like a nightmare. Nick, do you want to...
Przemek, Polish Society for Bird Protection. I just was to say that in Poland the most challenging is to find landowner, because Polish agricultural land is divided to really small plots, and some landowners live really far away from the plots, so it takes a lot of time to find landowners. Sometimes it takes, for example, a few days, 2, 3, 4. So then we have less time for working field.
It's getting an interesting split between practical problems around the fences themselves and also all of the stuff around it, basically, like permissions and things like that. I'll move on to the next question around learning curves. Was just, I guess if you were, there'll be people in this room that are maybe just starting out on a new nest fencing project, but if you had a colleague or friend that was thinking about nest fencing, are there any just key bits of advice or tips that you would be like, please think about this? I guess it's kind of linked to the previous question, but...
Try to not only fence the nests, but also the chicks. Try to get bigger fences. Don't buy cheap or chicken fences, because the voltage most time is not sufficient, and roe deer get entangled for easier than in wires, and they can die, and that's not good for public relations. And then carrion crows are a topic. For if you have a flock of young carrion crows in your area, which might specialize on fences, because they might do so, in my region they do so,
Okay.
you have to get the permission for the hunters that they are allowed to shoot the non-territorial, non-breeding carrion crows. This is very important, for they are very intelligent and they see what's happening within the fences.
I thought this might be happening, but you're preempting another topic as well in terms of alien predation. But yeah, no, that's a good one. Any more? Do you want?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Just I was pointing. Sorry, I don't know your name actually at the back.
Yeah, I'm from Cumbria.
Yeah.
I would say remember to switch it on at the end of the day. And what Barney does is actually hold it, and then you get the shock, and then you do remember you have the.
Okay. I'm not sure I'm gonna write that in the notes. Okay, right. Okay. I think we're okay. But you had one more.
Oh, mine was going to be practical ones, like so. Think about at the outset where you're going to store all your fencing materials and how you're going to transport them.
Honestly, it's been a nightmare for us as a Wales, yeah.
For us, really, we got the stuff, and then they're like, "Oh right, what are we going to do with all this now?"
Yeah.
And also, yeah, permissions. Like, check what permissions you need at the outset, and try and do that as far ahead of time as possible, because you can cause delays.
I think that's a really good point. Yeah, we had, like I say, it was pretty green starting out, and it was like 2 pallets of 15 nest fence kits, 2 pallets of kit. Like, it was suddenly, where are we going to keep this? And Ian's now helping me out with that. But yeah, sorry, I will move on to the next. So we mentioned briefly about land manager perceptions. This is, I mean, we said land manager here, but I guess that tends to be the thing. But it could be other perceptions, public perceptions and stuff. So we got our first group vote actually. So hopefully everyone's got access to the cards. I should say, if you don't feel like you have enough experience to comment, feel free to not vote. But the statement I'm posing to you is: land manager or public perceptions will cause problems for nest fencing unless addressed carefully. Raise your cards whenever you're ready. Wow, that's that's pretty striking, actually. I think, isn't it? I would say probably 2/3 agree.
I think more than that.
More than that? Yeah. Maybe 3/4 agree, some neutral, and then we got one red. Yeah. Oh, a couple of reds. Okay, so there's some. That's really interesting. That does match up with what the questionnaire showed as well. So, in terms of, we asked respondents about concerns around fences attracting avian predators, and there was some by field workers and some by other stakeholders, but by far the most common was land managers' concerns as well around that. That's avian predators. We did also ask about attraction of mammalian predators, which perhaps unsurprisingly is much less of a concern, although still a little bit. It still did get some people answering yes to that, by other stakeholders or land managers. So I guess we've had one already in terms of but was that was interesting, because that felt like that was your concern rather than. Was that land managers or others' concerns, or was that your concern about the carrion crow attraction to fences?
Well, we had to observe it, and then we had to react afterwards. And beforehand, we never would have thought that this would happen.
Yes. Okay. Does anybody else any experiences to share around land manager concerns? Really interested to hear what kind of the nature of the concerns are. So, Natalie, do you want?
Yeah, I mean, one obvious one is that people are concerned that deer might get entangled or hare that we disturb other white-eyed bull.
Yeah.
Which I understand.
Yeah. Is there? Because I'm also keen, because I don't want this to just be like, oh, these are perceptions. Like, they're often the perceptions are based in some form of reality. So if you had experiences with deer,
yeah, not with you so much. It depends on the size of the fence. Because like if you're in a fence, you might get issues with deer.
Yeah.
I've heard about them. I've not witnessed them.
And then with the smaller fences we use, we have had issues with carrot getting into the fence and line.
Yeah.
This hole.
Yeah.
And in Pombos, see a lot of amphibian getting shot, like Chinamuk. So yes, it is.
It's not nice. Yeah.
And then another funny one, which I think is ridiculous, but the farmers are concerned about other farmers who see the fences thinking something bad about them, you know, like, well, what is this guy doing now?
Oh, what, as in like because they're helping with the conservation project, or?
No, just because it looks messy.
I can kind of believe that based on, yeah. We've got Clive and then Clive.
My covetous complaint is that you're fencing off too much crops.
Yeah.
So I got one of the farmers to mow it after we'd taken, having mowed the rest of the field, mow that patch after we'd taken the fence down. And it was a bit less than one large side found. So I said, well, my cows need that in a day.
Yeah.
So what's the complaint? And that was the last of it.
That's interesting, yeah. That's about what's large silage bale, about 35 quid or? 60 quid now. Oh yeah, I'm a bit way off. Showing my ignorance. Yeah, that's interesting.
Well, farmers don't like buying them.
No.
Because they don't know what's in them. They tend to like to go and...
Yeah, and the fastest buying in yeah. Exactly. There was a few hands, I can't remember, I think Susanna was first earlier on in the...
Yeah, it's sort of a bit of an extension of price. It's clearly a hassle. It's clearly an inconvenience. Yes. Farmers don't necessarily want to regularly encourage people that they don't know onto their lands. All these people running around who are all these people. Sometimes had alarmed when a team turns up. Gosh, I didn't know there was going to be so many. Yeah. Just the inconvenience of going in later to retrieve crop. There's clearly a cost to the farmers there.
Yeah.
The size of the plots that we want, they always, not always, perhaps a third are quite alarmed when 20 metres is mentioned. Wow, they kind of, in their heads, got much smaller. And then the other kinds of concerns we get is, don't you electrocute the chicks when they leave?
Yeah. Yeah, that all rings true for me as well. I think I've had a lot of similar... Jackie, did you...
As a fetching the bottom higher or pecking of the chicks.
See, our first farm is in Poland. We'd never really struggle. I know maybe a girl picks obviously one of our farmers, but they all quite open minded, always Jimmy. Yeah, on America, really.
Right. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Pete, did you want to...
Yeah, I mean, just as a farmer, something I'd add to say. One kind of good thing about species is then we cycle, within fields, I would say,
Yeah.
So, I'd probably say now we'll have another 6 or 7 curlews this year. Say we came last year for it, probably takes the same goes where we're going to net.
Yeah.
So, I mean, as a project manager or as part of the project, you'll know where your curlews can be, especially if you've got a small project. Why don't you, in the off-season, go see those farmers and either put your fences, your nests with you, so your fence put them on that tarp. And say to the farmer, look, if we've got a nest, we'll be there, we'll be 6 or 7 of us about half an hour to keep us to that. Don't shock them. Try and think your head in a quick kind of way, you think it, you would turn up in your back garden or whatever, that's it. That's if it's a new farmer or somebody that's a bit skeptical, and you will live something like that. So I think, maybe a bit of interaction from the group, whatever, groups or whatever, let's lead group to kind of think obviously go see that done.
That's really interesting. If physically having the equipment on the farm gives that little bit of ownership or like a bit...
Yeah, sure.
Not surprised you've seen it there going out. That's a really good point. I've not got about that. Matt, did you want to...
I was just going to add a little bit about, I haven't been involved in nest fencing, but I've been talking about them for ages, but it's like a rigid story about the size and the direction of the fence and the shape of the fence. It's in line with the way that farmers wants to mow, things like that. So might have diamond shaped fences that work with the shape of the field and the direction of the mowing. And then I was thinking outside the box. What about sort of slightly edge fences with a bit of edge shape to them, so there's cover and then not cover for chicks to quickly dash between. That's, I don't know. And I talked to Rachel in the evening about corridors and buffer strips and fenced areas connecting to buffer strips or long-run areas. You know, there's every variation in the book for the farmers that are prepared to do those variations.
Yeah. And then
bigger nest fences, you know, than 20 metres.
Yeah. I think I'm going to have to move on. We should have put 2 hours on this discussion, wouldn't we? But thanks for your input. We come to the next topic and the next vote as well. So the next topic is all around abandonment. So again, the same voting system. Do you agree, neither disagree or disagree with abandonment as a big concern when fencing curlew nests? That's a bit more of a spread. I don't know what you would say. I think the neutrals has it just about. There's quite a lot of reds though. A decent number of greens. It's a really even spread, to be honest. That's really interesting. Feel free to put them down. That does kind of go along with the results of the questionnaire. So, firstly, asking whether people had experienced any abandonment of a fenced nest. So, not necessarily what's caused it. A lot of people had experienced that. Still a minority that hadn't. And then asking, but then looking at that in terms of as a percentage of the total fences that the project has deployed, it was a really small percentage, so a median about 3.5%, which is kind of the abandonment rate we'd expect. And then as the percentage of the times where respondents thought this has actually been caused by the fencing itself, that was about 1.8% as well. So I guess that kind of chimes with the mixed results that people had. For those of you, if you've responded to the questionnaire that you had experienced some abandonment, we're going to ask about just some specific examples. It's really good. Obviously, this questionnaire gives us the statistics, but I want to hear some kind of examples. And is there anyone who's happy to kind of chat about a time that sticks in their mind, or do you want to go for it?
Yeah, David Gardner from Melbourne Project.
Yeah.
The year before last, we fenced the nest that, for various reasons, we were only able to fit 5 meters by 5 meters.
I see. Yeah.
And it was successful. Some eggs hatched. The female had some difficulty, at least initially, actually getting out of the fenced area. On the camera that she was struggling. The same pair came back this year. We went fenced 20 by 20, but that immediately caused the female to abandon the nest.
So strange. It's really interesting. So it's 5 meters. The year before, 5 meters by 5 meters. Yeah. Wow, because that seems like a really small area. You've had experience with using livestock feeders, Ian, hadn't you? Small areas around, and you're happy with oyster catcher and lapwing, wasn't it? That you said, yeah. But you're kind of thinking about trying it with curlew for smaller areas, so maybe that does give a bit more.
Yeah, when the bird had got stressed, obviously the up far and it tried to get out. It's related to the nest. Yeah.
What we thought was might be better if we waited until the year. Because we fenced it immediately, kind of the nest, which was below 180 and I picked this year. So we thought, what'd be better if we waited for the tills, the nests had got more eggs in, so that the female was perhaps more attached to bedded to.
Yeah.
But then that curlew did, or that pair did have another nest, which we waited a bit.
Okay.
And went to fence it, and it been predated. So.
That is a nice segue, actually. I guess for time, I should probably get a move on because, So in terms of we asked questionnaire respondents whether they fenced incomplete clutches. So an overwhelming majority of people did. So for some people, I know maybe Susanna, actually, sorry to pick on you, but you have quite a strong fence on find, regardless of clutch size.
Yeah, some of you may have read in the game that we played on Friday, our Black Monday, and this was a back holiday Monday, and we literally went from one nest that had been found a few days earlier. We'd worked out it would be full clutch on this Monday. You went from one it had gone to be predated to another, we went to 5 nests, all of which had been predated. And it was not a good day. Yeah. And I said, why are we waiting at the full clutch? Why don't we try not doing that? And we tried it, and we haven't had any abandonment.
Right.
But
Yeah.
it's so context specific.
Yeah. Is there anyone?
Everything that we do is so context specific, so it's just our experience.
Yeah. And it's just a, yeah, like you say, it's a choice within. Is there anyone, could you?
Right, Mr. Green, Miss Susanna.
Yeah. Is there anyone who answered no to this, so wooden fence, incomplete clutches still, or? Sorry, Ryan, did you want to? Are you raising your hand?
Just say, my percentage is that there's variation in your of bugs. There's so many things, right? So yeah, disparity from likes of fences, so they get in from notches. You get various weak people, response to stones, various as about abuse one more big fun. That this man standard words, and you got a reactive guy, then make wait. Yeah, you got a pair of tree covered, then maybe you got better know. Maybe making an assumption that as just a one size fits all approach.
Yeah.
Accuracy.
So that could be playing out with the pie chart is basically just different approaches for different sites. I am going to have to move on because unsurprisingly I run out of time. But so in terms of the watching back as well, so this has been mentioned in the discussion a little bit so far. A huge majority of projects watch back for every single deployment as well. So again, speaking to what Jamie was talking about, I did want to really briefly ask if anyone has ever had to take a fence down from watching back and a bird not returning. So did you, in those circumstances, did the bird then return after you taking the fence away? Was that, or it wasn't like the damage already done and it's still abandoned, or?
I had several birds abandoning the nest, several couples.
Yeah.
And in some phases where we took the fence down within the hour, they went back to the nest. But some, yeah, you have like all these characters. Some are more wary than others,
Yeah.
and once you have touched the nest surroundings, they won't have anything to do with it anymore. So yeah. I'm not sure if it maybe has to do with predation pressure, that they're already very wary, and if something else happens, it might be too much for him.
I think that speaks to Ryan's point as well. I think it's different for different people, isn't it? Do you want to go that?
Yeah, a mixture of scenarios over the years. Had bears abandoning nests due to fences, and then also had scenarios where we'd taken fences down, bears have gone back. And then also had scenarios where we'd taken fences down and beds haven't come back. So
yeah, it's just back at ones that are really individual.
Could you quickly say how long do you give it? How long is your cut-off point?
I wouldn't give it any more than an hour.
Right.
You
Yeah.
know, after that.
Similar for years, but yeah. Okay.
Yeah, we've taken the fences down after an hour and beds have come back. But then I can remember one scenario in particular where we fenced the nest, the birds came back in, essentially just looked at it and then flew off. That was it, sky gone.
Yeah.
And we took the fence down with the kids didn't come back. There's the site there, so yeah. I did think, I don't know if anyone else has noticed this, but there's certain behaviours that I look for when watching back. So I haven't watched like quite a lot of birds back over the years. The classic is they come in and start just walking around the fence. And I think if they do that, eventually they tend to jump back over. So if I see that behaviour, I'm kind of quite content that they go back. But the ones that end up abandoning seem to, they'll come in and land and just stand and say like 50 meters away, just look at the fence.
Look more freaked out.
Whereas those see heel coming back.
Yeah.
So I mean we use a lot of behavioural cues in our field generally. So I wonder whether we could use behavioural cues to see how likely abandonment.
That's really interesting. Has anyone else noticed those kind of differences, behaviours between early on? So as soon as birds return, you notice that. Well, that's really interesting.
You wouldn't have noticed a vocalisation.
I think a few birds that have abandoned have actually alarm called when they come back in and seen fence and alarm call. That's pretty rare, but I have seen that.
I'm going to have to move on to the next topic in terms of predator breaches. So another group vote. So the group vote is the statement to agree with is fox or badger breaches of nest fences are a problem for us. Okay. I'd say pretty overwhelmingly no, or disagree with that. There's a few neutrals, not many agrees. I guess again this comes down to site, differences. Back to Ryan's point. So, has anyone where they have found an issue? Has anyone got any kind of things they've done or specific ways to mitigate fox or badger breaches? Things that you changed about your practice to try to reduce that? Or is it just one of those things you have to take to hit? Clive, do you want to?
No foxes, but we had a dog jump over into the fence.
All right. Wow.
It was easy enough to get out.
Yeah. Didn't do the nest. It was fine then, yeah.
No, it did no damage. It was all bothered by being tracked.
Right. There was. Oh, do
It changed from polywire to superconductor polywire or steel wire for badgers.
Right.
Particularly, yeah.
It just gives it a bit more
tone.
Yeah. There was a question we asked. I should have said the questionnaire asked a lot of if there are any topics people wanted to raise, and somebody did want to particularly raise whether foxes jump over fences or slip through them. I don't know if anyone has, especially maybe the keepers. I bet you know a bit more about fox behaviour, what you would expect. But does anyone know? Happy to move on if that's.
You were saying that the RSPB spec for a fence much taller than the some of us use.
Yeah.
It is the evidence for that because they're bigger and more awkward.
And did you want to?
Yeah, I was just to say, the thing about stereo fence is quite important. So for Lowy fences, when we do big kind of hex search, or that's all fences. That's quite big areas, cutting out territory. And so we do get quite a lot of reaches for the fences. Whereas the curly fence is such a small area, like how much full is there? We've got to really get in there. Right. And that's one of the onset scale of that bigger than necessarily. That's all.
Yeah. That's presumably true of badger as well as fox, and John.
Just one thing on the back of experience of the fox going for the same field, it would be useful to identify or block off some of the access points where they're coming through, either through additional fencing, like a gateway. So you've almost got like a second.
They
get into the field before they get near there.
Okay, yeah. I was just thinking, 10 minutes, right? Cool. Yeah, no, I think I'm actually doing okay. But I will move on, unless there's anyone got any more on fox stuff. Jackie, did you want to?
This was just a morning from his side, yes. And so he said that if you're penciling custody as cleanse or a roll or a hedge or anything, you should leave enough space for clubs around there. You don't follow linear things or like along the landscape, like that rows. If you fence right up to the hedge, it's more likely to be a variable and the I could then investigate. So means that like a name on the alley, some the big and slip very not investigate fence.
Yeah. Well, clever. That's good. That's a really good point though. Yeah, because those linear features, foxes, going to be using those. So yeah, you're creating that barrier. I think that's a really good point. Was there any more? I'll move on to the next one then. So, this was another one that was raised in the questionnaire. People were really interested in if there's anything that can be done around small mustelids, breaches of fences as well. So I'm conscious there's potentially some types of was it Petra, isn't it? You were saying about mesh. So is there anything? Did you have any experiences trying to stop smaller?
They're trying for some things, like the averaging crew. At least we think so. You have to low as often as possible, so you can install a very low wire. I think that's you.
So still wired fencing is just a very low strand and just mowing, trimming a lot, basically. And what's the results? Have you had any?
We changed this 2 years ago, so you don't really know. We have to collect more detail. And all the fences stand up different, and only some of them are really approved.
Yeah. So was that because of just the upkeep and the tech, how difficult it was to do that, basically? It's just too, So it wasn't that, you didn't really get to test it. Has anybody got any other experiences with trying to stop small mustelids with fencings? Because I'm, again, quite happy to move on because we've still got this final topic to go on. I've got still about 5 minutes of it, Andy. So yeah, it kind of gives us maybe a good time to. So we've got a final vote. So I thought this would be an interesting one to end on. So just again, if you could say whether you agree or not with, based on my experiences, nest fencing is a sustainable conservation intervention. Again, we're getting maybe good questions because we're getting very split rooms, I think. I would say there's fewer that disagree with that. So I think it's more positive for nest fencing as a sustainable conservation interventions. So is there anyone who would like to speak to that a little bit more about? I'm thinking here completely holistically. So that's about, the amount of effort, the amount of money, the volunteer enthusiasm. Clive has already raised his hands. Do you want to?
Well, it's not just the predators, it's the key agricultural machinery openers. It's also eats up, especially sheep or cattle because they might trample.
Yeah.
And so, it's also partial people. I can, in some places it's more important to stop agriculture and value the less rather than
Yeah, I think it's a really good point. Yeah, so essentially, even if you've solved the predator problem, there'd still be a lot of reasons for nest fencing. Presumably not we're talking about the stuff I was talking about with Ian. Maybe you wouldn't need bottom strands. It could just be like a stop-proof fence, to mark out the area for the farmers or just keep stock off.
Flatting because of the rubble will shape them. You easily get caught on that side of treatment. I bet that probably many a distant bar.
So you feel like with your project, this is something you can keep going. This is, your.
Yeah, so we had one of our landowners objected to nest beds. We said it was a waste of time to test scare the birds off. But the farmer himself said, well, I find it very reassuring when I go into a tree, I know exactly where the nest is and I'm not going to mow it or whatever. And also, a lot of the farmers are attracted by is that in the grazing is short and we fence the rest the sheep to go back in.
Yeah.
And we could be sick.
Yeah. No, I think it's a really, really good point. Is there anyone else who has any thoughts about this? I think you're just first.
So I tend to be bring cards out because you need to be working with farmers to do the fencing themselves and understand the importance of it. So we're very privileged. We've got some fantastic volunteers. We've got some fantastic wardens here in the national park. So luckily we're quite sort of people heavy to do the fencing, but long term we need to be working more closely with farmer to make sure that they're comfortable putting fences up, because some aren't, and that's Americans on sales and much of them farmers are on board, and that they also are putting them up for right. There's a real skill. I haven't actually put one up, but Rasheen has, and they got it down to fine art and in quick time as well. So it's going to work with farmers to do that, just like he says how.
Yeah. So is that kind of the wider perceptions again as your what concerns around sustainability? Yeah. Or wasn't in the end. But there's one,
we tried working with farmers to actually train the farmers, up them up, and then tonsure them and take them down. Yeah. But we didn't manage to do it at a large enough scale. We did it with like 1 or 2. We've been asked to do it at a larger scale. But I mean, it's their land. It's the birds are on their lands. There is buying. It was contributed to this carbon environment measure that they were then paid for their time to do it. With the objectives that where we were going with it is that eventually they would have this bird on their land and they would know how to fence their bird. They get to find it. They might get assistance finding it, but they'd have the equipment there and everything would just be quick and easy. And then they can monitor it because they're already monitoring their electric fences anyway. And then they can kind of manage it if needed on a bit of regrow. And then they can take it out. Say project bar, it's very small scale.
how you say if it works on a large scale or not.
That's really interesting. And again, in terms of sustainability, that makes total sense. I mean, I would just really quickly ask, as we ran out of time, have I got them? Yeah. Just so, because we asked this around with our farmers in the Dales, and there was quite a bit of concern. I mean, in terms of technicalities of putting a nest fence, electric fencing up is bread and butter, obviously, isn't it? But there was some concerns around not knowing what can cause disturbance and what can cause abandonment and stuff. Did you have any worries? Were there like concerns from the farmers about not wanting to do the wrong thing, or
We could, to be honest, they probably didn't get to that stage where they're at doing it by themselves. It was just such a low number that he kind of ended up doing it with. So really what they ended up doing is we helped them cut it up, and that's part of the training exercise. And then they did a bit of the monitoring and they took it down, or they helped take it down. But to get to the point where the farmers has down to low, I mean, the project finished. We could get to that point. But I mean, I think like we're farmers, grow electric fences all the time. They're not hard to put up. There's a little bit of technique and fencing in terms of making sure you corner posts, but they're not hot. Like, I'm a farmer. They're not hot.
Yeah. All right. Well, sorry, but I will be allowed to. No. What do we? Okay. Oh, sorry, but yeah, I could about
Yes, I have just one small idea. Maybe if you will prepare it by some new survey, it's
a good idea to collect more detailed data. For example, how many eggs was in nest with when it was massive, or maybe we can go further on all stage of incubation was nest when was massive, and try to connect link number of nests, the tags incubation set stage with addendum. Yeah. Because maybe probability of abandon is higher when the clutch isn't complete or it's in early stage of incubation. So as a be useful for conservation.
We don't good plug for the breeder monitoring scheme pilot. So because we would ask for clutch, so dates at which nests are pens and buff sizes of that pen as well. So so if that could, we could find that out if kids were engaged with the pilot. So yeah, no, it's really fun. Natalie, did you use that bootstrap that you did?
Oh yeah, I'm happy with fencing those birds for multiple years now. I don't know, maybe it's not a popular opinion, but I don't think there's anything sustainable fencing wild birds.
Interesting. Yeah. So
I just don't want to do it at all.
So you were a red card player.
I don't think it's maybe a matter of viewpoint how you access the word sustainability, but I feel like it's a short-term measure to overcome hard times, maybe, but I don't think that is a sustainable solution at all.
So I don't want to put words in your mouth, but you think it's important temporary?
Exactly.
So it's just the key word is temporary.
It should be a temporary measure.
Okay, that's interesting. Any more?
I think that's a
good...
okay.
No, that's a really good point.
Paul's kept us to time. Thank you very much.
Can I just really quickly say, just again, I said at the start, but if you didn't submit to the questionnaire, it's still open. Contact us at waders@bto, waders@bto.org. We also will be launching into analysis and write-up, so we're hoping to get something to questionnaire respondents for review by like summertime. And then hoping in this calendar year to kind of finalise stuff around the research report and the guidance as well. So it will be questionnaire respondents we're engaging with these documents for review. And so again, just get in touch if you want to be involved in that review process as well. So I'll leave it there. Thanks again, Andy, for...
Keep talking. So we'll have 10 minutes back in here at 20 past, please.